Well, the result wasn't what I wanted, what I hoped to see, but it was kind of what I expected given the way the prosecution had been handcuffed in the Ali matter. Let's talk about that. Hi, Tony DeWitt here. I'm a Missouri appellate attorney, retired, and I bring you a fresh perspective on the law without offering any legal advice. So pull up a chair. This is what we're discussing today. Well, let's get into this. I have to say that I was wrong to blame the judge. And let me explain why, because it certainly looked like she was making an error. But as I've said before, we have an adversarial justice system. And in an adversarial justice system, and I've got a video on this that'll be coming out shortly, but in an adversarial justice system, both sides are represented. The Ali's had counsel and the state had counsel. If the Ali's counsel was trying to get in something that was objectionable, the prosecutors had a duty to object. And they had a duty to make an argument that was convincing and keep it from being admitted. By the same token, on the other side, if the prosecutors were trying to admit something and the other side had an opportunity to object and made an objection, then the prosecutor's job was to be persuasive. But in this case, that didn't happen. In trying to get in this honor killing and arranged marriage information into the trial, in one of the briefs that were written by the prosecutors, they said that there was no express evidence that that was the motivation of either defendant. Now, if indeed that's the case, then I suppose it was probably right to keep it out. But if there was some positive evidence that suggested that it was not the motivation, the state had the duty to turn that over. What they didn't have the duty to do was look at this and not say that you couldn't reach the inference, the reasonable inference that that was the motivation. Because with that having been expressed to the child, as apparently it was, then a reasonable inference from that is he was trying to follow up on the threat that he made. But because they effectively took the guts right out of their case by saying, well, we don't have any express evidence of that. Well, no, they don't have him on videotape saying that. They don't have a recording of him saying that. All they have is a 17-year-old girl saying, that's what he told me. But I'm sorry, that ought to come into evidence. And it was the express motivation, apparently, because he really was trying to kill her. I don't think there's any doubt of that. The medical evidence was there that showed the idea that she wasn't badly hurt is nonsense. Anytime you reduce the supply of oxygen to the brain, or anytime you increase the intracranial pressure, damage occurs. It may not be major, but some damage occurs. Otherwise, you wouldn't have petechiae. This is the thing that, having had some medical training and having seen some criminals as patients, having seen some criminal victims as patients, I realize that that is a completely reasonable inference from the evidence. But the prosecutors here, for all of their rhetoric at the end of the case, which was good, I thought their closings were very good. For all of that, what they didn't get in was the motivation, the true motivation. And you can't blame the judge for that if they didn't make the case. And the reason you can't blame the judge is because in the adversarial system, the prosecutors had a duty to be persuasive, to get that evidence in. And then if, an appellate court later overruled them and sent it back for a retrial, well, okay. The problem that I see here is that the prosecution, I think, thought they had a slam dunk case because they had that video. I think they thought they had a slam dunk case because they had two heroes who got in there and saved the girl's life and came in and testified about it. I think they thought they had a slam dunk case because of the interracial aspect of it. The Alis didn't want their child with an African American gentleman. I think they thought that would weigh heavily on the minds of the juries. And I thought in general that that strategy was okay if you couldn't get the evidence in. But essentially, what they should have argued is that it was a reasonable inference from the medical evidence of the damage and the unwillingness to release the chokehold. Those are the two things that, to me, solidified the case as an attempted murder. But as you know by now, the jury didn't find that. They found that he was not guilty of attempted murder, and they found the wife not guilty of attempted murder. They found him guilty of second-degree assault, which is a much lower charged crime. I believe it's probably even a misdemeanor at this point, although it does have a domestic violence enhancement. And they found him guilty of 2 counts of assault, as I understood the reading of the jury last night, or the reading of the verdict last night. And then they found her guilty of violating a court order because she violated the order of protection. So yesterday they released her from custody. They kept Ijan in custody because he does face prison time. And they could put him in jail for a long period of time. He probably wind up being in the county jail, frankly. I don't think they'll send him to prison for a misdemeanor. Like they could, but I doubt it. And they might send him for a domestic violence issue. That might also happen. I would bet that there's probably some, class he has to go to in order to get released from the Hooskow. They're probably going to make him take sensitivity training, and sitting somebody down and explaining to him that, we use love and kindness and good parenting techniques to get our children to obey is not going to work with someone who is a zealot. He absolutely believes he has the right to tell his daughter who to marry. That zealotry is not going to be influenced in any way, in my opinion, by some kind of a class on domestic violence that they make him take. Because of that, I think for the most part, anytime you put somebody in a substance abuse class or a domestic violence class or something like that, in the long run, it doesn't do any good. And the reason it doesn't do any good, frankly, is because people who are prone to doing that kind of thing, they simply are not going to be influenced in any way by that kind of coursework. So here's the thing that is my greatest fear in all of this, and that is that because his honor has been called into question, Mr. Ali will at some point in time decide to go ahead and carry out his threat. Now, why would I say that? Because, the guy's been through this trial, he's been in jail, he's been held for a long period of time because, I guess since last October, he's been held. So surely he wouldn't want to repeat that. He did this in front of multiple witnesses. He fought off 2 men to try to strangle his daughter. This is not a guy who's seriously worried about consequences. He's worried about his honor in his culture. And that's what concerned him. That's what motivated him. And for that reason, I'm afraid we've not seen the last of Mr. Ali, or Fatima has not seen the last of Mr. Ali. And if Fatima winds up going missing or something else happens to her, I think you can zero in on the prime suspect at that point. Do I know that's going to happen? No. Is it a reasonable inference from what's happened before and my understanding of that particular culture? I think it is a reasonable inference, but I pray that it doesn't happen because he might very well straighten up and fly right. I don't know. I hope that's what he does. I hope he gets on with his life and hope he doesn't have anything further to do with his daughter, because clearly he is not a positive influence in her life. And I hope that Fatima essentially kind of gets her head together too. Missing school is not productive, and she needs to find something she can do as a career, as a job, something so that she can make her life better. And I hope that's what happens. Am I disappointed in the verdict? Absolutely, I am disappointed in the verdict. But I don't blame the jury, and I really don't want to see anybody else blame the jury. The jury was given a set of facts, and the jury was given three very good arguments. And because of the facts that they were given and the arguments that they heard, they reached the conclusion that they did. They went after this for 3 full days of deliberation. You can't blame them for the result that they reached. You can't blame the garbage out. You have to blame the garbage in. And I salute the jury. They reached what they thought was the right answer in this. There is going to be some accountability for Ishan Ali. No accountability really in any respect for Zara. That's what they determined the facts to be and applied that to the verdict. And the judge accepted the verdict and entered the verdict. So that's what the judgment of the court will be. Like I said, I'm disappointed in the outcome, and uh, I had kind of I didn't want to jinx myself and say, she's probably going to walk, or there's probably not going to be an attempted murder conviction here, because I really did think that the closing was really good on the part of the state. But given the attitudes and beliefs that seem to be prevalent in the great Northwest, and given the evidence that they were given, this jury was given, I think that they probably reached the right result. Well, I know they reached the right result because it's the result they got. I respect the jury's verdict. And again, if I don't like it, I have to look, in this case, at the prosecution. Because in a plaintiff's case, if the defense wins, it's the plaintiff's fault. He didn't convince them. In a criminal case, if the prosecution loses, then it's the prosecution's fault. If the defense wins, then the prosecution wasn't convincing. And so, again, I don't blame the jury. I don't blame the judge. Unfortunately, this falls right back on the shoulders of the prosecution. And I don't know who wrote the brief where they admitted that they didn't have any express evidence of this, because it was clearly a legitimate inference from the evidence. But that's what they wrote. They failed to carry the day. And as a result, this is what you got. That's what I have for you today. Thanks for being here. Have a great day. That's what I have for you today. I hope you found it helpful, interesting, or maybe both. If there's a subject you'd like me to discuss, please feel free to send me an email at the address above. If you like what we do, please feel free to subscribe and come on back to the beach tomorrow. I release videos every weekday, weather and work permitting. If you have the opportunity today, do a kindness for your fellow man. It makes the world a better place, one kind act at a time. And now, YouTube has some suggestions for other videos of mine that you might like.